Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Sub250 Huma20 with the 04 Pro inside. Pretty much everything has relaunched with the 04 Pro. There'll be more flying along those lines and smoother lines, but let's cover the specs first. Of course, we've got the 04 camera, which is on a 3D printed mount that is soft mounted with some little rubber grommets, and I have my camera angle turned up for my faster flight. The 04 VTX, or the base of the system, is right there, and we have our USB port right there. Do kind of need a specialized sort of USB cable. I use this one, which is kind of shaved down, comes in super handy for a lot of these quads. And obviously the 04 comes with two different antennas in this particular case, which they've mounted side by side here. The version I have is with ExpressLRS, and we have a T-style antenna for ExpressLRS, and our USB port is accessible for our flight controller right back here. And we can't really see that flight controller down in there, but it is the Red Fox A3. It's a 45 amp all-in-one flight controller. This quad runs 4S. The motors are 1304, 6,000 keV. And all those motors are our HQ props. They're the 2x2.2x4 quad bladed props. And these props do have a little bit of a different noise profile to them, which I think isn't as piercing or doesn't carry through the air as well as others, but you can listen to the flight footage and decide for yourself. XT30 for our battery connection, which is connected down here to this plastic mold. This antenna mount does move around. I'm not certain when you would use that except for a single antenna for the 04 that would run right back here. I think they use this for the 03. We do have some 3D printed mounts to protect the quad from bumping into stuff and scuffing them up. The ExpressLRS receiver is right here. It's inside of a 3D printed holster in this back section. And right in there we have a capacitor, but I'm unable to read the size. I would suspect it's at least 16 volts. It weighs 191.95 grams. The recommended battery is 720 milliamp 4S batteries. I suspect even these Sub250s are made by G&B. I did find that on the 850s that I have, like the Beta FPV Lava batteries, those don't fit in the battery strap that they give you. So kind of restricted to this and smaller size batteries. Even the 650s are a little bit thicker than this, so they don't fit in here quite as well. We'll just weigh one of the batteries, and with the 720 milliamp 4S battery comes in at 209 grams, 0.12-ish. Top carbon fiber plate looks to be 2 millimeters thick, and so does the bottom. And motor post to motor post, I'm getting about 95 millimeters. It does come with an extra set of props. It also comes with a wiring map and some other instructions for attached accessories for that Red Fox A3 all-in-one flight controller in 2 languages. Comes with an extra battery strap. It is kind of a nice battery strap. It has a little bit of texture in here. That's why I have this plastic covering on there. But if you get those dirty, just wipe them clean with something mildly damp. Comes with a couple of battery pads, but I didn't find with this configuration how they have this set up with the loop that these are necessary at all, because the battery strap would be grabbing it. It actually kind of barely even touches these if you lay them down on the quad. So I didn't use them. We also have a lens protector in there. We have some extra rubber gummies. We have a mount that you put right up here that you can use to add a external HD camera, but I did not test fly with that. I've done that in the past with the 03 version, I believe it was. I also noticed that when I tried to put this on with the press to fit nut, that the particular nut is with my kit, it wouldn't even create any friction, so I could tighten that down. So wasn't going to be able to use it anyways. And in this case, it came with 2 sheets of stickers. We're going to jump right into the faster flight, which I already kind of showed you a sneak peek. This is how I prefer to fly. This is actually the most current flight because I've had this a good long time. And I'm surprised that Sub250 hasn't been giving me the business about this, because, you know, I had a lot of snow for a while, and then I broke my wrist, and then I had to wait for the cast to come off to be able to fly very effectively. I could do the slow cruisy stuff, which many of you suffered through, but in order to fly like I like to fly, you know, I needed the freedom and the mobility of my wrist. And then we got more snow after the cast came off my wrist, so now we're several videos into full channel sorts of flight. So this will be a full review, as you could probably tell, because I did the full specs on this. As I said, I'm flying the 720 milliamp. In this particular case, it did note it's the red label, which the Sub250 might be made, well, it's definitely made by the same company that makes the batteries for G&B, but as far as the quality of the cell, it could be equal to or not equal to the red label G&B batteries. I don't think it is the red label G&B, because I just felt that the red label performed slightly better. But this, if you saw my last video on the NanoFly 20, this flies actually quite a bit better, and I think they did a much better job in the PID tune, and I hope that comes out in my flight. You see very little prop wash or jitters or anything that is actually abnormal in the flight. And I do all the things that I would typically do: faster pace flying, harder turns, punch outs. I do all those sorts of things, and I was pretty impressed with the PID tune. Now, this won't be for everyone. And necessarily, oftentimes I look at these as filming quads, but that won't necessarily be the case, because some people just like the added security and protection of having props fully encompassed in protection. There is one risk to this particular style of fully sort of encased propped quad, is that if you're flying this around objects that are painted or stuff like that, because it's carbon fiber, it's more rigid, so it's not going to give. So if you hit a car, it could chip it off, or if you hit your house, it could mar it up or even take the paint right off. That's what I'm trying to lead to. Whereas most of our modern Cinewhoops that have plastic protection that is a lot more flexible, at the very worst in those cases, when it comes to hitting inanimate objects, you're probably looking at just maybe a plastic mark that you can, put some spit on your thumb and then rub off that particular surface. But those are also have the downside that if you're flying around animals or people or something like that, that they're a little bit less on the protective side, because the prop protection, depending upon the impact, can move out of the way and then you have a prop strike, whereas this is fully encased. Yes, you can still get hair and fingers and what appendages in there that could get marred up or damaged pretty severely, but it's fully encompassed, and I think that's the draw for some people. You see there the flight ended. We didn't get all the way down to the magic battery voltage that I like to shoot for, so our flight time in a faster 720 with the 720 is generally going to be somewhere around that marker, 250 to 305, something like that. This is kind of an ideal flight for the Huma20, as I think it's Huma, or is it Huma? Huma? Anywho, this is 2 to 6 mile hours in the winds, and it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit, so real nice day. This was actually a while back too. I don't think I told you in the faster flight, 12 mile an hour winds, and it was only 44 degrees, so that was a bit cooler. Our temperatures have fluctuated quite a bit, and I just saw the weather report tonight. They're expecting more snow from my area in the next 24 to 36 hours. They're saying just a dusting. But also, when we got 4, 5, 6 inches, they were calling for like 2 to 4 inches, and then we get end up just outside that range. So I know weather models, it's not, high science. But this is a look at our DVR of the slow, smoother flight. And it's, when it comes to the 04 Pro, I think that's where it excels, is we haven't seen at least I haven't seen with the 04 Pro, the DJI 04 Pro, that has any sort of issue with getting smooth footage. And as we move into the onboard recording with Rocksteady on, we can see that, to my eye, especially in 6 to 10 mile an hour winds, yeah, it's good and smooth. I mean, you can, somebody's going to ask me if you can fly this with a GoPro. Yeah, your flights are going to be really short, because you're carrying an awful lot of weight with a full GoPro. If you use a light GoPro, your flights will probably still be quite a bit shorter than I get on mine, because I'm not using that. It's just whenever you add weight, that oftentimes results in lower flight times. Of course, it changes the agility, changes how it handles overall. So really, I think unless you're filming inside, that's your need, and you have to use GoPro footage, I think a larger quad would be more appropriate, because I thought this was very, very good. Let's move into another slower flight sample, and then I'll report some of my flight times. So this is obviously a different day. We've got clouds in the air, and it's also got different winds, and that's why I wanted to show it, because the design of this is about filming and footage. So the day is 15, excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied. Holy catfish, there goes Mr. Squirrel. 10 to 15 miles per hour and only 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And now we've switched over from the DVR, what we see in the goggles, to what's recorded with Rocksteady on the VTX itself. And we're just going to kind of inspect Mr. Squirrel. We're not going to torment him too much here for anybody who might be worried about me bothering the squirrels. There are a dime a dozen around these parts, and you can actually see when the tree bark that's kind of gone. I allowed my son, when he was like 10, he wanted to learn how to throw hatchets, and I had a hatchet. It's just, regular dad sort of hatchet. And I said, well, go out to this tree, away from the house, away from everybody else's house, away from, the 6-foot fence, stuff like that, and just throw it over there. That was 10 years ago, and the bark on that tree did not come back, and I did not expect that. The arborists out there, I apologize. I didn't know that. Even though I worked on a tree crew back many, many years ago. We just cut them down. We didn't really take care of trees. I had no idea that would happen. But anywho, this is just another sample for those that are looking for, a little bit different weather environment, as well as a little bit different on the winds. So we showed 6 to 10 miles an hour, and then we also had a faster flight at 12 miles an hour, and we have this flight at 10 to 15 miles an hour. I think once you get into the 20s, that's where you're going to run into troubles. Oh, I get tangled up right there, so this is going to end. To complete my thought, once it gets into the 20 miles an hour, I think it's still going to be doable. But as far as filming for the purposes of actually doing cinematography, you're going to need something bigger. You probably want something that's not prop protected in that particular case. It's just when you get up into those higher winds and having all these flat surfaces that winds can push the thing around on, it's very difficult to, well, it's not very difficult. It becomes way more challenging to stay on your line and do the cinematic sort of flying. Okay, so a couple of things that you also need to be aware of in this sort of style, and this is kind of what I would call our older style, but not our oldest of style when it comes to cinematography sort of quads. So when you crash, you have 2 carbon fiber plates, and of course, oftentimes when we crash, we don't hit flush. We're going to hit at an angle of some sort. So the things that you need to be aware of on this quad is you might need more aluminum posts, and you might need more M2 screws in order to replace them. Of course, when they get bent out of whack, I can see, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. If you crash fast, that's where it's going to bend and flex for the most part, because everything else is pretty hard. It could break the carbon fiber depending upon what you run into. Most of my crashes have been pretty mild. I had one that was the most annoying one. Let me see if I still got the prop. Yeah. So I bottomed out doing something around the tree, and this is fully encompassed, and I don't have any rocks like big stones out in the yard, and this prop broke just from that bottoming out. So these props are made to be light and efficient. They're not made to be durable. So get yourself some extra props after the ones that are already included. It's just something to note. I didn't have any high-speed crashes. I didn't crash into the cement or hit the house or anything like that. Most of my crashes were tumbles in the grass over the course of the time that I flew this. Some flight times that I don't think I reported during the SOAR flight because I got tangled up in that flight footage that I was going to show you. With a 650 milliamp battery, flying cruisy style, I got 4 minutes and 30 seconds. With the 720s, I got 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I did drop down to a 550, which was interestingly enough, still got me at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. So not that much of a difference between a 550 and a 650, oddly. We're talking about 20 seconds. The biggest difference is when you step up to the 720, where you get a full minute. Again, the 850s do not fit in here, at least the 850s I have that are more rectangular shaped. They're kind of bulky. That will probably definitely put you over 250 anyways. And this battery strap is small enough to where that doesn't work. Let me show you here real quick. So this was how I would mount my battery. So even with the 720, the amount of purchase that we get on the Velcro is pretty good. But the 850s are substantially bigger than this. And then I would just I would take this and I would put it up in here so it wouldn't get down into the prop line, and give myself a little turn one way or another, and then I would plug it in, and that's how I'd fly it. I don't think I called it out in the quick specs, but these antenna mounts, they are 3D printed as well, and I have noticed that this one is looser than this one. I mean, you could shore that up because you can see there are slits in them, because when you get it out of the box, these antennas are just laying on top, so you do have to place those themselves. Take a zip tie and run it around there, tighten it down. That should stop all the movement that I currently have. It actually would have been wise for me in my flights to done that beforehand. I don't think they included any zip ties in their packaging, so that's something you're going to need to have on your own, because I don't see any in there. And the reason why you want to do that is because you can see, it kind of comes down below here, and if you land on the top and this pushes hard, then it's going to start tugging on your antenna connection. And those UFL connectors are not super robust. They're secured in there. Hopefully you don't damage the connector and it just pulls the antenna out, and then you just buy a new one. But because this is kind of looped over here to stay out of the prop line, if you hit up top and it shoves all the way down, it's gonna, you can see there, it's not all the way down, but it's pretty taut right now. So further down is going to put more stress, or an attempt to go further down is going to put quite a bit more stress on there. As far as the screw mount goes, it's just got a single screw. Hopefully you can see that in there at the top. It's just got a single screw holding that 04. I didn't have a problem with it holding its position. You know, when I bottom out, it didn't change my camera angle or anything like that. It is a little bit of a pain because you do need to have a good long driver and be able to get it through there, but it's not a big quad, so as long as your driver's, I guess, regular length rather than, you know, the little drivers that you might have that come in kits, you should be fine to be able to change your camera angle. This was the camera angle I was flying at when I was doing the faster flight. Slower flight, I try to get not flat, maybe 5 degrees, maybe it's somewhere around 7 or 8, just so it's more cinematic style, and then you go for your cruisy sort of flight. I was going to point out, like, if we look here, there's not a lot of space between the VTX and the flight controller. And the only reason I bring that up is because if you do land, and say you have a stone or something, and you land down on that, and you've got the battery weight on top, it's hard for me to feel it. I can see it moving in there when I squeeze it. But I think they've got nylon nuts on the top of the flight controller, which would also help provide a bit of support so that it wouldn't be, you know, crushing either the flight controller or the VTX, because in both cases they're expensive. In the case of a flight controller, it's pain because you got to do all the rewiring and configuration and setup if you destroy that little bird. So, and then we also do have our connector that goes to the 04. I didn't have any issues with it coming out. But it is accessible, so if it did start to work out, like say your 04 didn't power on or something, it probably had started to work its way out of here. You can use a little tool like this and just get it on the edge and just push it back in. And that is the Huma20 from Sub250 with the 04 Pro. I actually thought it flew pretty nice for, you know, what it is. You know, without prop protection and the same sort of 4S and size batteries and everything, without prop protection, they're going to be lighter, so they're going to fly longer. They're going to be able to fly a little bit more aggressively. But for something that's fully encompassed in carbon fiber with all this metal and stuff, I thought it flew pretty well, and I thought they did a pretty good job of the PID tune. So that tells me, as far as going back to my last video on the NanoFly, Sub250 knows how to PID tune. At least they did a pretty good job here, in my opinion. So maybe the NanoFly just was kind of reaching its limits of what those motors and props could do on 2S. But as far as this one goes, yeah, if you're looking for something like this, I'll have links wherever it's available. Pyro Drone, Sub250.com, Race Day Quads, wherever I can find it. Affiliate link or not, just like always, I'll link it down in the video description, or you can just do your Google foo to look for the Sub250 Huma20 with the 04 Pro. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching. Hello, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the